Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julie Salomon. I'm the Chief Executive Officer with Strathbogie Shire Council. I'm opening today's meeting as we need firstly to elect a chair, given that the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor are both on leave today. In accordance with Rule 14 of the Council's governance rules, we are required to elect an acting Mayor just for the purposes of chairing today's Council meeting. Councillors, can I please have a motion regarding the appointment of an acting Mayor for the purposes of chairing today's meeting, please?
Thank you, CEO. I'd like to move that Councillor Binks chair today's meeting as acting Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Councillor Binks, are you happy to accept that role?
Thank you, CEO. Yes, I'm happy to accept the role of acting Mayor for today's meeting.
If that's the case, is there any opposition, councillors, to that motion? No. If there are none, I will now put the motion to a vote. Can I have all those in favour, please, raise their hands? Thank you, and that's carried. Thank you. We have all in favour, unanimous, noes against. I would now like to welcome Councillor Binks to take the chair as acting Mayor for today's meeting. Thank you, acting Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to this Council meeting of 15th June 2021, which is commencing earlier at 2 p.m. today in order to hear quite a number of submissions from the applicant and community on item 9.2 of the agenda for the use and development of a camping and caravan park, 2-lot subdivision and creation of easements, development of land for boat ramp and 4 jetties, 82 Kerwins Bridge Road, Nagambie. Can I just remind all our guests to please keep your videos off until you are speaking. And Emma, have you got something?
I do. I believe we have everybody still waiting in the lobby and they haven't actually been admitted to the meeting yet.
Right.
Excuse me, through you, Chair. I'll admit everyone now. Just one moment.
Thank you, Director Tingay. Hello and welcome to all our guests in our virtual meeting. Can I please remind you to mute yourselves and turn off your video until it is your time to present. This is a requirement for our local government. This is a requirement for our local government good governance, that we can see all the councillors on the screen. So if you can please mute yourselves and turn off the video until it is your time to speak. Okay, so
excuse me, Councillor Binks, could you turn off put your mute on?
I don't know how I did that. Thank you, Councillor Murray. The chaos. So I think we have everyone. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to this council meeting of 15th June 2021, which is commencing earlier at 2 p.m. today in order to hear quite a number of submissions from the applicant and community on item 9.2 of the agenda for the use and development of a camping and caravan park 2-lot subdivision and creation of easements, development of land for boat ramp and 4 jetties, 82 Kerwins Bridge Road, Nagambie. This meeting is held in accordance with the Strathbogie Shire governance rules and the ministerial good practice guidelines for virtual meetings.
Point of order, please.
Yes, Councillor Dickinson.
I think there are still people in the guest room on video.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. I'd like to remind our guests today that are joining us online, if you could please turn off your videos and mute yourself until it is your turn to speak. You'll be invited to speak, at which point you can turn your video on. Alan McLean, I can see you're showing up. If you can turn off your video, please. And Yvonne Deering and Graham Perham. Thank you. Yvonne Deering and Graham Perham, are you able to turn off your video until it's your turn to speak, please? Are we showing up in the right way, CEO, or do I need to wait until they've turned off their video?
Through you, Acting Mayor, no, we will need to turn ask Yvonne and Graham one more time to turn off their video. Otherwise, we don't get the full screen of what we need to meet our requirements. Yvonne's just saying that she doesn't know how to. There's a little camera button, Yvonne.
There we go. Thank you, Yvonne. Thanks for that. And you'll be invited to turn it back on when it's your turn to speak. Thank you. Okay. So, firstly, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands on which we are meeting, a lot of us virtually, or all of us virtually today. I pay my respects to elders past, present and future, and acknowledge their continued connection to land, waterways and culture. Due to COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, this meeting will be held virtually. I want to take the opportunity to outline that voting at today's meeting will be held by a show of hands. If a councillor has a conflict of interest in a matter, they will be asked to leave the meeting and no discussion on the matter will commence until we are sure they have done so. Councillors will rejoin the meeting after the matter has been considered and the vote concluded. If we have technical difficulties during today's meeting, which means we are unable to broadcast the meeting public, we will adjourn the meeting for 15 minutes. If the issue is not resolved after this time, we may extend the adjournment or even delay the consideration of unfinished business on the agenda to another day when the meeting is able to be streamed live or the public gallery opened. We hope that everyone in our community has now received their invitation to be a part of our community panel. This is the first time that Council has used deliberative engagement methods to develop our community vision and set the direction of the next Council plan. The panel will have the important role of reviewing the information received during the first stage of the community engagement program and creating the Strathbogie Shire 2040 community vision and the 2021 to 2025 Council plan. The panel will consist of about 25 to 30 people from throughout our Shire. The panel members will be independently recruited at a random selection process to ensure there is a cross-section of people working together to drive our direction. Expert facilitators will support panel members with different viewpoints to work together in a respectful manner and come to a shared position. This will be a genuine, open process that will result in a shared vision for our future. It will not be a public meeting format where loud voices can sometimes dominate. We are also keen to include younger people in these processes, so we encourage young people aged between 18 to 30 years old to register so we can include their important voices in the process. To register your interest, go to deliberatelyengaging.com.au/Strathbogie, and registrations close on midnight Sunday, the June 20th, which is this coming Sunday. So please we encourage you to register your interest now. Okay, apologies and leaves of absence. CEO Solomon, are there any apologies or leaves of absence to report?
Thank you. Through you, Acting Mayor, I'd like to advise that Councillor Chris Rayburn, our Mayor, and Councillor Melanie Lykos, our Deputy Mayor, are both apologies for today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Disclosures of conflicts of interest. Councillors, are there any disclosures of conflicts of interest to be made under Rule 94 of our Governance Rules and Division 2 of the Local Government Act 2020? Councillor Horrigan.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Regarding planning application 9.2, the planning permit application number P2020-124. After considering whether or not I have a conflict of interest in this matter, I have consulted with council staff and legal advice has been sought. I wish to declare an interest in the matter as one of a group of many tourism operators that run businesses across the Shire and the region. However, I do not have a general or material conflict of interest in this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. So I just need to organise a change of order of business. Councillors, we have a number of people wishing to make submissions to council on item 9.2 on the agenda. We also have a number of questions submitted for item 8, public question time, that relate to this item. In accordance with Rule 29 of Council's Governance Rules, we are able to change the order of business by way of a resolution. Councillors, can I have a motion to change the order of business so that we now consider item 8 and item 9.2 on the agenda relating to the public question time and the use and development of a camping and caravan park, 2-lot subdivision and creation of easements, development of land for boat ramp and 4 jetties, 82 Kerwins Bridge Road, Nagambie. Councillors, I need someone to...
I'm happy to move that motion to change the order of proceedings. Thanks, Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Murray. Does any councillor wish to speak to the motion? I will now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? And that's been carried. Okay, so we can proceed. Thank you, councillors. So CEO Solomon, can you please read and respond to the public questions submitted for this meeting?
Thank you, and through you, Acting Mayor. We have 21 questions, so bear with me. This will take some time to get through, but it is a matter that has certainly generated a lot of community interest. The first question is, or 2 questions are from Mr. Darren O, who asks, in relation to Planning Matter 2020-124, the decision guidelines to take into account the impact of the character and appearance of the area. Why is it feasible for 215 cabins and 57 camper sites not to have an impact on the natural scenic beauty and the environment of the area? Darren has also asked on the same matter, the Strathbogie Planning Scheme Clause 21.06 promotes tourism. Why does tourism carry more value than the amenity of the township of Kerwin's Bridge, the well-being of its residents and the preservation of the environment? And in response to your questions, Darren, the questions posed are in relation to the officer report being heard before Council today. The Strathbogie planning scheme takes into consideration a broad range of matters, both state and local policies. The planning matter will ultimately be decided by VCAT, and all Victorian planning policies will form part of its consideration in accordance with the Victorian planning provisions. Thank you. The third question we have is from Brenda Cooper, who has asked, can the following be included in the permit conditions? Proposed development is classified as a non-motorised water sports tourist park. No launching of powerboats or PWCs, jet skis is to be allowed from the property, nor is the property to allow waterfront access to any visitors by water using the same. In response to your question, thank you for raising the proposed additional conditions for the planning application to be heard today. We do note your comments for consideration. Mr. Paul List has asked, has any consideration been taken by the Shire or the developer regarding the local neighbours? If so, has the developer expressed to the Shire any circumstances that would mitigate the impact to neighbours? Has the Shire considered 21.02-2 of the Strathbogie planning scheme to preserve and protect small community settlements such as Kerwin's Bridge, Goulburn Weir? And in response to your question, Mr. List, the questions posed are in relation to the officer report being heard before Council today. The Strathbogie planning scheme takes into consideration a broad range of matters, both at state and local policies. The planning matter will be ultimately decided before VCAT, where all planning provisions will be taken into account. Thank you for your question. Paul has also asked, the fact that the proposal hasn't really changed beside a change to the size of the boat ramp. Is the Shire aware of any proposals by the developer to add any infrastructure for the benefit of Kerwin's Bridge or Nagambie residences, if successful? And in response, the application before Council has taken into consideration a number of matters, including the infrastructure as part of that consideration. The draft permit conditions, which will be provided to VCAT as per the officer's recommendation, cover a range of infrastructure requirements, including those that you mentioned. We now move on to questions, and two questions from Des Mason, who has asked, can the decision on this application be deferred? Many submitters were disadvantaged. They weren't notified of an interlink to the meeting as a virtual meeting. And in response, Mr. Mason, all people who registered to speak have been contacted and were advised, and then there was on updates to our website and also on social media posts. Now I'm going to read out a series of further questions, of which the answer is exactly the same, but to be due consideration to all of those people who submitted, I will respond to ask all the questions and then provide the answer at the end. Des Mason has asked, will the Shire be spending ratepayer funds for roads, paths, tracks and service utilities to be provided in the development site reference P2020-124? Darren Lyons has asked two questions. Firstly, given the significant level of concern for the environmental impact from the many objectors to the planning application P2020-124, why hasn't the council seen the need to obtain an independent flora and fauna assessment rather than relying on that of the applicants alone, or as a minimum had the applicant's assessment independently peer reviewed prior to a decision being considered? Darren has also asked, The development for P2020-124 is immediately adjacent to the backwater that is environmentally sensitive and has not had an impact of powered watercraft for over 130 years. Why is the Shire permitting such activity into this backwater and wetland? Mr. Richard Hiscock has asked, Section 9 of the Local Government Act 2020 requires transparency. Why have the reports from the applicant to the Shire not been made available for distribution to respondents to the application? Richard has also asked, the officer comments state that one portion of the land, Lot 1, was used as commercial business. Was a function centre, cafe, restaurant, cellar door and not a secondary facility to the whole agricultural business of the vineyard? The next questions are from Jackie Anton. Jackie has asked two questions as well. The first being, the analysis of the development is based on the decision guidelines of the Strathbogie planning scheme, which is very general. Why has the planning analysis not been more in-depth, particularly with regard to clause 112.01 biodiversity and the subclauses 12.01-1S and 12.01-2S. Jackie has also asked, why has the planning analysis not investigated in detail clause 13.03-1S of the Strathbogie planning scheme to protect and enhance river corridors, waterways, lakes and wetlands? The next two questions are from David Mannock, who has asked, in relation to this matter, the site is in a farming zone where the purpose is to provide for the use of land for agricultural purposes. Why is the land being permitted to become a zone for a commercial operation and a pseudo-residential home zone? David has also asked, the farming zone specifies a 40 hectare as a minimum lot size. Why is the proposal being permitted to create lot 1, which is only 16.4 hectares? We now have two questions from Bob Arnold. Firstly, the development is supposed to relate to a sustainable land management. Why is the planning consideration that connection to reticulated services is the only component in sustainable land management? Bob also has asked, the decision guidelines suggest that buildings avoid any adverse impact on surrounding agricultural uses. How is it possible for the development to cover the whole of Lot 1 and be considered to have no adverse impacts? Greg Maher has also asked two questions. The first question from Greg. The Strathbogie planning scheme calls for the protection of biodiversity. Why is the planning consideration based on reticulated sewer, landscape plans and stormwater and not on the protection of threatened species and their habitat? Greg's second question, the Strathbogie planning scheme requires protection of river corridors, waterways, lakes and wetlands. Why is the planning consideration not based on an assessment of the protection of these assets? The response to all of these questions is, the questions posed are in relation to the officer report being heard before Council today. The Strathbogie planning scheme takes into consideration a broad range of matters, both state and local policies. The planning matter will ultimately be decided by VCAT, and all Victorian planning policies will form part of its consideration in accordance with the Victorian planning provisions. Andrew has also asked two questions. Andrew Duckmanton, I apologise, Andrew, for not giving your surname. Andrew has asked, does Councillor Lighthouse have a conflict of interest in this matter due to her business that relies on this tourist activity? Answer, all matters of potential conflict are part of the council meeting and declared accordingly. Andrew has also asked, is the Shire aware of the developer's plan to use this decision as the base to develop low density housing on the $15 to $20 million piece of land he has purchased directly north and east of the proposal site? And in response to that question, All planning applications are considered on their own merit, and should an application be submitted into the future, it will be considered at that time. Low density housing will be required to be zoned accordingly prior to any consideration of a permit, should one be received. Land to the south is zoned low density residential with a development plan overlay. And thank you to all who have submitted questions for today. Thank you, Acting Mayor.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. We now move on to consider item 9.2 on the agenda, use and development of a camping and caravan park, 2-lot subdivision and creation of easements, development of land for boat ramp and 4 jetties, 82 Kerwins Bridge Road, Nagambie. Director of Community and Planning, Amanda Tingay. May we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Binks. Council has received an application for the use and development of a camping and caravan park, 2-lot subdivision and creation of easement, development of land for boat ramp and 4 jetties at 82 Kerwins Bridge Road, Nagambie. The proposed camping and caravan park component of the application comprises 119 villas, 96 ensuite sites and 57 powered sites, reception office building, cafe function facility, recreational facilities and a manager's residence. The proposed subdivision, the 2-lot subdivision, Lot 1 comprises of 16 hectares and Lot 2 comprises of 25 hectares. The proposed creation of easements is to allow for water and power supply to both lots. This application was advertised and 1,177 objections were received, and in addition, 19 submissions were received in support of the application. Council referred the application to referral authorities, all whom have consented to the proposal subject to conditions. Council has received notice from the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal that the applicant has lodged an application under Section 79, failure of the responsible authority to grant a permit within the prescribed time of 60 statutory days under the Planning and Environment Act. Given this lodgement, the decision maker of this planning permit application is now VCAT, not Council. However, Council must form a position on the application and provide draft conditions to VCAT. It is up to VCAT as the decision maker to consider the application and, should a permit be granted, determine the conditions for the permit. This application has involved a number of community consultation opportunities, and thank you very much to the community for all of your feedback and involvement in this process. Thank you, Acting Mayor Binks.
Oh, sorry, lost my video there trying to unmute myself. Apologies. Thank you, Director Tingay. We have our councillors. Do you have any questions of Officer Tingay? No, I don't see any. Okay, so we have members of the public wishing to address the meeting on this item. Under our governance rules, all parties have 5 minutes in which to speak. Councillors may ask questions of clarification to the submitter, but there will be no debate. So our first presenter is Des Mason. Sorry, Des. Des, if you would like to begin your video and unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, all. I assume you can all hear me?
Yes, thank you, Des. So good afternoon, Mr. Mason. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Your time begins. Des, just pause for a moment, Des. Sorry, is everyone else receiving a broken audio from Des? Yeah, we're having trouble hearing you, Des. CEO Solomon, is it okay for Des to present orderly and turn off his video?
Through you, Acting Mayor, yes, that's absolutely fine if Des approaches it that way, and see if we can get a better audio sound without the camera.
So Des, if you would like to try that, just switch on your video and then you can present and we can still hear you.
Okay. I start again, and I wasn't expecting to again express and reiterate my objections to this development. Given we have had forums, submitted objection notices, had meetings with every council representative and had meetings with relevant stakeholder bodies that have a connection to this development. The result is still the same. That this proposed development area is ill-conceived without any regard or respect to the residents or the environment. The number of objections that were submitted and the views expressed by so many affirm the application is inappropriate to the area. The reports from the relevant bodies have little or no mention to how the issues would be addressed, controlled or enforced. There is no mention of dangers from the logs and stumps of the eastern backwater or mention of the eastern backwater at all. Access from the proposed caravan park to the waterways is via an arm of the eastern backwater and is the access to and from the river for boating, jet skis, swimming and skiing. Responsibility of the waterways body is to oversee safety for all people on the waterway. If the proposed caravan park gets approval, the increase in boats and watercraft would surely make it unsafe for the caravan park customers and other users. There are many issues raised in relation to the effects this development will have on the environmental impact, boating, location, traffic management, water safety, the effects on property values, blue-green algae, fisheries, and what effects it will have on the failing Kerwins Bridge. The relevant departments that I thought were entrusted to oversee, protect and preserve the waterways have not given more deliberate consideration to the many issues that were presented astounds me. We retired in the Kerwins Bridge community as a lifestyle choice, never expecting that there would be a caravan park on our residential boundary and a possibility there could be 1,000+ people at any given time in this rural area. The applicant has used creative words in some responses that the council must be well aware of, that the applicant then chose to take the application direct to VCAT, indicating to me little or no regard of the due council process and promotion of the outcome in their favour. In closing, I would like to say that given the council's views and stance on climate control and the environment, voting in favour of this caravan park will forever be remembered as failing to support those who will bear its legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Des, and thank you for persisting through that challenging issue with our technology. Do any of the councillors have questions for Des? No? Okay. Thank you, Des. You can now mute yourself and we shall move on to our next presenter. Thank you for taking the time to present to council this afternoon. Richard Hiscock, are you with us, Richard?
Yes, I am. I'm just... Hello, can you see me?
Yes, yep, we've got you there, Richard. Thank you. Right. Good afternoon, Mr. Hiscock. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Yes, Mr. Hiscock was my father's name. I'm Richard. How are you?
All right, Richard.
Okay.
You have 5 minutes, Richard.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Look, I know there's a lot to get through. I'll get through as quickly as I can. The fauna and flora report that was handed that I saw at the Visitor Information Centre on an hour and a half on Thursday and an hour on Friday, that was paid for and put by the developer. I would ask for your money back if I was him. There's something that hasn't brought up is they've talked about 41 hectares of land, but the actual size of the eastern backwater is larger than the land itself, and the backwater is an environmental nightmare as it is, and it should be just left as it is. It's approximately 110 acres, so it's nearly the same size. And it was the environmental report on the land and water, which is over 200 acres of land and water, was done in one day, April the 1st of all days this year. So how could you do a report on all of this? The report states that white-bellied sea eagles, platypus, catfish and trout cod weren't sighted, and so they were unlikely to occur. But we and others have photographic evidence that they are all there. They even said brolgas were unlikely, that they were breeding and roosting only. But then that was April. Brolgas breed from July to December. The platypus were unlikely that they breed in the area. Yet the current owner, Anna Hubbard, mind you, she still owns the land, has told people that there are at least 2 nests, probably more. The report did say on 2 occasions, this is the only thing that made sense out of the report, that on 2 occasions that the water was still and stagnant with little oxygen and prone to blue-green algae. And blue-green algae has it's a bacteria. It has 22 different varieties that are classed in that blue-green algae family. You can only have 1 or 2 present to create a toxic situation. Now, since March 25, 2019 to today, it's 808 days ago, and this is according to Golden Murray Water, there have been 748 days of blue-green algae. So there's only been 60 clear days in the eastern backwater in the last 2 years and 3 months. The report application in today's agenda lists the development as nearly 3 kilometres from the town centre. It's not. It's 3.6 kilometres from the post office in a straight line as the crow flies, and 4.7 kilometres by car, bike, or even on foot. And this is about the same distance as the Torquay Caravan Park development application in 2014, which I think Council knows about. And they then reapplied, they got beaten at VCAT, and they applied again this year and got beaten again. And that was 5 kilometres from the town. And both times the council rejected it because of environmental issues, too far out of town, and the development was of no benefit to the town. So that's the same. It sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Environmental issues, too far out of the town, and the development was no benefit to the town. Much has been spoken about Ngambie needing more accommodation. The leisure park told me they are mostly booked out 5 weekends of the year. So that's 47 weekends there's vacancies. The caravan park is booked out around 4 weekends a year. So that has 48 weekends of vacancies. During those peak times of 4 or 5 weeks of the year, we have 1 ambulance, a police station's open about 15 hours a day, and we are severely restricted as we are a town of 1,800 people. Today you are faced with 2 choices. Yes to a park with 4 jetties and a boat ramp that will be severely restricted, so much so that it'll probably be unusable most of the time. In time you will come to regret having made that decision. Or no caravan park for Kerwins Bridge. Just leave the backwater as it is. Let all the birds, the fish and the other animals thrive in an environment that in years to come you can sit back and take some credit for saving this area. Something that your children, grandchildren and future generations can appreciate. There are 1,177 objections to this application, over 1,000.
Richard, you have 30 seconds remaining.
Yeah, that's all right. There are objections were from people who come to this area to fish, kayak, photograph and wonder at the whole area. And a lot of them signed their objections there at the backwater. These people come from everywhere. They stay locally, they spend money in this town. So this backwater already has been showing economic benefits for years to come. This area must be protected at all costs, not just for today, but for the future. You need to say no to this application and tomorrow morning sit with the developer about making this into a sanctuary and environmental park. Education is something for the future with viewing platforms, hides, and away from the water where school groups, kids and families can come for a day and learn about the environment and appreciate what we have here. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for your time in presenting to Council this afternoon. If you can now turn off your thank you. If you can now turn off your camera and mute yourself, you can remain online, or you're welcome to leave. Can I now see if Imelda Arnold is with us? Do we have Imelda?
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, Imelda, hello.
Okay. Oh, good. Yes, I'm Mel Arnold, a resident of Woodley Court, Cowan's Bridge. I'm opposed to the caravan park development being located on the eastern backwater. Last time I spoke, I appealed to you to take this opportunity to safeguard and protect this valuable natural resource for important environmental reasons. In the light of growing concern about climate change, those environmental reasons are still most important to me. Today, I ask you to consider a different aspect to your planning decision: reputation, the reputation of Nagambie. At this point, Nagambie has earned a great reputation, not only for its friendly, welcoming residents, but also as an area extolled for its natural resources and visitor experiences, a finalist in the top tourism town awards. The Eastern Backwater, along with Picnic Point, is a popular visitor destination. Over 1,000 people during the peak holiday period visited this area and expressed their dismay at the caravan park plan. Reputations are determined by people. Now I ask you to imagine for a moment to put yourself in the position of a visitor to the proposed caravan site. Imagine families arriving with anticipation in holiday mode, towing their boats and trailers with as many different brand names as motor cars, Crown Lines, Mastercraft, Sea-Doos, to name a few. Equipment for all the family members to use, donuts, biscuits, water skis, wakeboards. Happy and excited as they look at the wonderful expanse of water that is the Eastern Backwater. Now, we the locals, you the Shire and the developer know the natural state of this water, wonderful for the wildlife, hazardous for humans. How will the visitor feel, having read the health and safety signs that as a duty of care have been erected? Information that only canoes, kayaks and fishing boats have navigated this stretch of water. The deeper water of the river is 500 metres away. Imagine the disappointment, bafflement, resentment, a feeling of being let down. Conversations with other boat users at the park would not be complimentary. Reactions, none of which is good for any business or organisation. Word of mouth advertising is very powerful. Businesses acknowledge this importance, noting that consumers or customers trust and believe in suggestions from friends more than advertising. How long before negative word gets around and affects Nagambie's reputation? The wetlands of the Eastern Backwater and Nagambie's reputation are very valuable assets, assets to be treasured and not put at risk. And I finished with a couple of quotes, one from Ted Rubin, a marketing strategist. Your business or brand is what you do. Your reputation is what people remember and share. Or Benjamin Franklin, it takes many good deeds to build a good reputation and only one bad one to lose it. Thank you.
Thank you, Imelda, and thank you for your time presenting to Council this afternoon. Is Bob Arnold with us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon. Bob Arnold, you have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you. The camping park is to be located along the bank of the eastern backwater, which is a very shallow log and stump-strewn wetland. Local powered craft owners know that it is not a safe wetland to venture into. However, the development proposes to have a boat ramp and 4 jetties along the backwater. How can you expect visitors to the park who are unaware of the numerous hazards to safely navigate their craft over half a kilometre along a very narrow channel to the river? Operating powered craft in the wetland is a huge safety concern, and serious accidents are sure to happen. This will especially be the case for around 3 months of the year when GM water decrease the water level of the wetland. Due to this, the proposed boat ramp will be inaccessible, thus substantially increasing traffic to the adjoining severely degraded Turner Island Lane and the crumbling ramp contained therein. If powered craft from the caravan park commence using this valuable wetland, the consequential impacts on the fragile fauna will be enormous. The impact on more than 9 threatened and endangered species of wildlife will be profound, and I have seen every one of them in the wetland. What a lucky community we have to have such a diverse array of wildlife that is unmatched by practically any other area in Victoria. This backwater provides a sanctuary, breeding and feeding ground for all our wonderful wildlife. This wetland is isolated and far away from busy human activity that exists in other parts of the Goulburn River system. The current flora of this wetland has been described to me by many visitors to this location as kakadu-like. What a compliment to this wetland. How many of the existing flora species flourish in the calm and undisturbed water, which provides a wonderful habitat for all the young fragile wildlife, which ensures they have a chance to survive to maturity. It has taken over 130 years from when the Goulburn Weir was constructed for the ecosystem of the backwater to develop to its present unique state. It would be a catastrophic event if it now collapsed due to allowing a high-density caravan park to be inappropriately located. Other Victorian communities are reclaiming wetlands and hoping that wildlife that once existed in those areas will return. Wetland areas very recently reclaimed are near Dunkeld and the Thalia. Why put the biodiversity of this eastern backwater at significant risk? Being so shallow, the backwater currently suffers from extremely high levels of blue-green algae over the summer months periods each year. There will be a huge health concern, having young families living adjacent to the wetland and trying to discourage them not to come in contact with the toxic water. I say a near impossible mission. As my residential property is within 100 metres of the proposed park, I will be exposed to factors that will change my current enjoyment of the area, some of these being noise from proposed amphitheatre, boat ramp, function centre, sound devices, vehicles and powered watercraft, light pollution on residents as well as our precious wildlife, loss of rural neighbourhood character, quality of life, increased traffic on Kerwins Bridge Road and Turner Island Lane, security and safety concerns, both personal and property, safety concerns with visitors unfamiliar with the narrow roads, dangerous intersections and very sharp bends. The thought of pedestrians and cyclists on the narrow carriageways is of even greater concern. The majority of residents in this small settlement of Kerwins Bridge are retired or about to retire. The effect of the proposed development, where in excess of 1,000 visitors invade the area, is a development step.
30 seconds remaining.
Sorry?
Bob, you have 30 seconds remaining.
Okay, I'm fine. The effect of the proposed development where in excess of 1,000 visitors invade the area is a development step that is too great to contemplate due to so many potential issues. There is 62 objectors to every one supporter, 62. That is an overwhelming statement from ordinary citizens to say that this development should not proceed where planned. Under the Shire's planning scheme on page 164, the scheme states that the small settlement of Kerwin's Bridge will be preserved and protected. Remember those two words, please. I plead with our elected councillors to preserve and protect the present quite picturesque and idyllic neighbourhood of Kerwin's Bridge, of the character of Kerwin's Bridge. If this inappropriate development is approved, it will have a detrimental effect on all the residents of our beautiful small community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Councillors, are there any questions for Bob? No. Going forward, I'm just going to clarify with my fellow councillors that if you do have a question, that you raise your hand in the chat function on the online, and that way I'll know, so I won't spend time asking after each submitter. Thank you. Okay, so Darren Lyons, do we have Darren with us? Hi, Darren.
Hi, how are you? I'm just sharing my screen, if that's all right.
Thank you.
I'll just, please don't start the timer on me, Julie, until it starts.
Okay, we can see that now, Darren.
Okay,
you
thank
have
you.
5 minutes. Thank you.
If I can just draw your attention to the map, you'll see that I have placed the proposed development to scale relative to the surrounding landscape. Viewed from Nagambie, which is at the top of the slide, you can see how far this development really is from the Nagambie township, and you can also see how the development effectively leapfrogs agricultural land. I've heard it said at your committee meetings before with other applications that this leapfrogging and these high density out of town applications are not good growth management. There is no good reason for you to allow this. I draw your attention to the small settlement of Kerwin's Bridge, which is in the yellow circle, heavily treed. Kerwin's Bridge gets specific mention for protection under the Strathbogie planning scheme. This settlement may share a postcode with Nagambie, but it is a town in its own right. People live in Kerwin's Bridge because they want to be away from urban development and to also enjoy the natural environment. You can see from the picture how this high density development on the doorstep of the town is not a reflection of the neighbourhood character and will clearly have a material impact on what we currently enjoy. Again, I've heard it said on your prior meetings from other applications that developments should reflect the neighbourhood character and reflect the low density of the town in which they exist. This application does not meet those important tests. I bring your attention specifically on the map to our property, which is marked on the X. Unfortunately, the subject site description in the agenda pack that has been circulated makes no mention of our property, which has a residence, is the closest neighbour not connected to the applicant, and our boundary is within 25 metres of the subject property. We have 1 hectare and 2 people live there. If our 3 adult children visit, our density for that 1 hectare is still only 5 people. Many of my immediate neighbours have similar sized land and density levels. This development will have a conservative minimum of 1,000 people on the proposed 16 hectares, which is approximately 62 people per hectare. 62 people per hectare versus our 5 people per hectare. That is over 12 times the density of our property. 12 times. I ask you, is that reasonable? We purchased this property on the basis of the rural setting and importantly also on the basis of Strathbogie Shire's Nagambie Growth Management Strategy, which I'm holding, which covers this area. This development is not in line with that strategy. Can I turn to the design of the park, please? By placing the boat ramp and the amphitheatre right next to my boundary, the applicant has also made no attempt to lessen the impact of this development on our property and the quiet enjoyment we are entitled to. And finally, I'd like to talk about the environment. You can see from the map of the backwater, the island, which are both some way from the main thoroughfare of the river and have been virtually untouched for over 130 years. It concerns me that not only is the flora and fauna assessment undertaken by the applicant not independent, it has not fully assessed the backwater environment nor the island, which you can see on the map. It is also important to note that this report was undertaken after significant clearing and excavation of the proposed site had already been done by the applicant. Please, for a moment, imagine the wildlife which would leave as a result of that excavation work. And for the record also, I was told by the CEO of the Shire that this process would be an open book, but the transparency and efficacy has come to a little bit short. We were only given access to the flora and fauna report from the applicant last week, which has clearly not allowed me or the many objectors to properly consider its content. We were also provided with the March reports from G&W and the CMA only in early June, which is a 3-month lag. This delay is important because it became apparent that those decisions made by G&W and the CMA were deficient. We have also not been provided with DELP's most recent correspondence. Despite this, surely, councillors, you will agree.
Excuse me, Darren, you have 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. Despite this, surely, councillors, you will agree that putting this natural environment in very close proximity to over 1,000 people will change it forever. I ask you, councillors, what sort of legacy do you want to leave? Thank you for listening, and I urge you to reject this application, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. There's no questions from our councillors, so thank you for your presentation. I'll ask you to stop sharing your screen and turn off. Oh, maybe I can just take control. I'm not sure. Nope. I don't want to present. Have we got it? Is it all back? There we go. We're all back to normal now. So thank you for taking the time to present to council, Darren. We appreciate that. I now would ask to hear from Paul List. Paul, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Firstly, I'd like to say hello. Why are we here? Because we're all relying on you, the councillors, to protect this special place and the hamlet of Kerwin's Bridge. Is this development in the community's best interests, and who will benefit? I've seen no proof that another caravan park is even needed. It would be a visual eyesore from 360-degree view around the site, and no amount of screening is going to help that. The reports from Golden Murray Water, Golden Murray Catchment, the DLP before do not address any of the real issues. The river is at capacity during peak season. There are problems with jet skis on the lake already. This would just shift the problem out to the Turners. Do we want this to be a high traffic area with more boats and jet skis? It's not safe to operate powered craft in the backwater. Now that the water level is down, it would be impossible to get anything in. There are so many stumps under the water level in front of the park. It would certainly be a safety issue. Powered watercraft in the area have not been into that area for 130 years. Noise and pollution from the park will directly affect neighbours, including noise from the boat ramp and the park. The developer has put it as close as possible to residents. The developer has not mentioned neighbours or neighbourhood in his proposal. The bridge is a clear issue. Extra traffic will shorten the life of the bridge. If the bridge was ever closed to residents on the east side would be landlocked by the tourist park. More importantly, even if the bridge was still open, Woodley Court would turn into a caravan turnaround area due to the bridge now being restricted to 3 tonnes. Walking traffic on the riverbank is unrestricted. Woodley residents get traffic through their properties. Now, it doesn't fit into the Strathbogie's planning scheme. The land.
Sorry, Paul, I just need to interrupt you for a moment. Brenda, can I ask you just to turn off your video, please? Thank you. Sorry, Paul, please continue.
The proposal is outside the Strathbogie's planning scheme. It's outside in so many areas, including check small communities as Kerwin's Bridge. Splitting 40-acre site is outside the planning. It's no leapfrogging, protecting the farming zone for agriculture, and the changes to the farming zone to allow caravan park was not intended for a 272-site caravan park. Other issues here are the blue-green algaes present for the majority of the year, pressures on the environment and the detrimental impact on the wildlife, wide range of species of platypus, bulgur, turtles, and the like. We have enough urban sprawl. What we don't have enough of these natural environments. You build accommodation to serve natural environments, not on top of it. Then it doesn't exist anymore. Right. The Shire has just announced a climate emergency, which goes in the face of everything regarding this proposal. Which businesses will this development help? The biggest employers in the region are residential and real estate services, scientific and technical services, financial services, agriculture, forestry and fishing and construction. There's no proof that this proposal is going to help that into the long term. What jobs will this create? Well, the developer has said that the majority of the employees on site will be cleaners. So at this stage, that's the only sector that I can see this helping in the long run. It's not going to be economically benefit the town in the long run. There's no extra infrastructure by the developer. The developer has offered nothing in the way of new infrastructure, no new documentation from the developer from the start of this proposal. Proposal does nothing to showcase what Strathbogie Shire has to offer. No positive outcomes of the significance for the permanent community. The introduction.
Excuse me, Paul, you have 30 seconds remaining.
Okay. The introduction of non-contributors to the community. Please save our Kerwin's Bridge for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for taking the time to present to Council this afternoon. I'm now calling on Richard Opat. Apologies if I've pronounced your last name wrong, Richard. Are you with us? Do we have Richard Opat? Okay, I will jump to the next one and maybe we can come back to Richard. Gordon Ackers, are you with us, Gordon?
Yes. Hello, I'm here. I'm at Jackie Anton's place.
Hello. Thank you, Gordon. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you very much. My name is Gordon Akers and I live with my wife Diane at 17 Wedmore's Lane, Kerwin's Bridge, and have for the last 18 years. We chose to live in this area 18 years ago because we enjoyed the experience of driving over the old wooden iconic Kerwin's Bridge and the feeling of leaving behind modern day involvements. Kerwin's Bridge Township in those days had few bitumen roads, no concrete curbing, no drainage, no footpaths, no public toilets, gardens or parks, and no supply of drinking water and an unreliable supply of electricity, but we like the rural feel. 18 years later, the township has been reclassified as residential with very high rate increases. All the unsupplied amenities I previously mentioned are still the same. 10 years ago, our iconic 120-year-old wooden bridge was under siege by Strathbogie Shire Council, who showed total lack of community awareness and sympathy for local residents and their lack of understanding for their own positions and caused Curwins Bridge to be closed. Short story, residents rallied and found a way to repair and reopen the bridge. It is now again to be challenged by a barrage of tourist trucks from a proposed monumental supersized caravan park to be built next door to residents of Curwins Bridge Township. I understand the caravan park will cater for approximately 272 sites, including cabins and caravans. The flow of traffic from this volume would be horrendous, not only for the tourist flow over the wooden Curwins Bridge, but for all hopeful users of vehicles along Curwins Bridge Road. Try to imagine half a dozen tourist trucks towing 24-foot caravans, local residents, some farm vehicles, delivery vehicles, families riding bikes, all trying to commute safely together along Curwins Bridge Road. The traffic would be terrible. My wife and I successfully managed and owned our own caravan park on the Murray River for 11 years and were members of the local Caravan Park Association. I feel I have a reasonable knowledge about caravan parks. I believe the proposed monstrous caravan park, if built, would become a serious health risk to the local residents of Curwins Bridge in the form of stress, anxiety, depression, and especially financial hardship for all residents. It will also cause the closure of Curwins Bridge. It also would be an environmental disaster for the waterways and would increase the amounts of boat skis already overloading the Lake Ngambie. I believe there have been over 1,100 objections for this caravan park proposal. I would suggest a lot of these objections are some of the voters who put you councillors in your new positions. I and they gave you our vote. I only hope with your new responsibility of being a councillor, you return our trust and give our constituents your no vote. Thank you for today.
Thank you, Gordon, for your presentation and taking the time this afternoon to present to us. Jackie, you're next. Thank you.
Go.
Hello, Jackie. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn my video off if that's okay.
Sure thing. That's fine. So long as we can still hear you. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Okay. My name is Jackie Anton. My first point is the application states the address of the development is 82 Curwins Bridge Road, Ngambie. This is deliberately misleading. The address is 82 Curwins Bridge Road, Curwins Bridge. The Strathbogie planning scheme refers to the small settlements of Greytown, Curwins Bridge, Goulburn Weir, Maypole and Boho South to be preserved and protected by ensuring the appropriate controls are applied to these small settlements. It also promises to provide rural living opportunities in these locations. This development does not comply with this small settlements protection. It is a high-density development on 16.4 hectares with a potential population of 1,000 to 1,500 people, and it is a town outside a town. It is designed as a captured market and is effectively a pseudo village. Regarding the agricultural land, the Strathbogie planning scheme offers opportunity for rural living that have minimal impact on agricultural activities, are environmentally appropriate and will retain and protect areas of high quality rural land for farming and agricultural purposes. The proposed development removes the agricultural land completely, and that is in conflict with the planning scheme in this zone. The officer comments in the planning report indicate that one portion of the land, Lot 1, was used as a commercial business. This function centre and restaurant was secondary to the agricultural business of the vineyard. That has now been removed. It's important to note this was prime agricultural land. The winery failed due to financial mismanagement, not because the agricultural land was poor. The application does not establish how the proposal will support and enhance agriculture at this site. The size and scale of the proposed development will compromise agricultural qualities of the land, degrade the river environment and have amenity impacts on surrounding land. The addition of the multiple uses which are not directly associated with the agricultural use of the land will oust the agriculture as the primary use on this site. Whilst the use of land for tourism purposes is appropriate and encouraged within this region, the subject site is not appropriate for the intensity and siting of the proposed use and development. Regarding sustainable environment, the Council recognises the significance of native flora and fauna, the health of soil and waterways, and understand that these are resources that need to be protected and enhanced into the future. The recently available Ecologist's Flora and Fauna report, submitted as part of the application, indicates that the threatened and vulnerable species currently living in the backwater adjacent to the site will not be impacted by this development. It is incomprehensible to think that the addition of 1,000 to 1,500 people, many with boats, so close to these species, will not impact the vulnerable and threatened wildlife. The planner's report fails to consider any of these points. In conclusion, this very large and overpowering caravan park will forever change the character of the small settlement of Curwins Bridge, the same small settlement that the Strathbogie planning scheme promises to protect. You all had the courage to declare a climate emergency. Now is the time to have courage to declare an environmental emergency. A wonderful legacy for the elected councillors would be to establish a sanctuary to protect this pristine and precious eastern backwater so that it is protected forever for our future generations. This application is expecting too much from this location and the beautiful eastern backwaters of the area. It would result in environmental, landscape and visual amenity impacts that are totally unacceptable to the small settlement of Curwins Bridge. The VCAT application submitted by the applicant states that there are
Excuse me, Jackie, sorry, 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. The VCAT application submitted by the applicant states that there are 5 objectors. This is clearly intended to be misleading. There are 1,177 objections to this development, and they must be heard and respected. We encourage you to vote against the issue of the permit, and thank you for the opportunity.
Very good.
Thank you, Jackie, for your time presenting to Council this afternoon. Brenda Cooper, are you with us? I'm now calling on Brenda.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Brenda.
I'm going to remain with my camera off, seeing I made that mistake before.
That's fine, yes, so long as we can hear you. That's fine. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation. You'll get a 30-second warning. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Brenda Cooper. I have a property in Woodley Court, Curwins Bridge, and I represent my whole family with this submission to request that you decline the planning application P2020-124. You don't always know what you've got till it's gone. The people of the small settlement of Curwins Bridge know and understand that statement better than most. Our heritage listed bridge was closed, and we learnt from that lesson that persistence prevails the good of the community. Believe me, our persistence will continue on this issue. We know our environment will suffer if this application proceeds, and we need you, our councillors, to protect it. That is, we need you to make sure that our community is not devastated by a commercial venture that will be permitted in the totally wrong location. The eastern backwater is a beautiful natural wetlands environment, a wildlife sanctuary, and we must not let it be destroyed. It is home to many species of plant life, bird life, and aquatic creatures. Please note that I did not say Lake Ngambie. it is the eastern backwater, Kerwin's Bridge. I know and fully understand that I don't own the eastern backwater, and I completely agree that it should be available to be enjoyed by all. We must, however, be careful how we treat this precious commodity to ensure that it is not ruined and lost forever. The point to the myriad of clauses within the Strathbogie planning scheme is to ensure that any venture, commercial or otherwise, that is planned within the Shire does not significantly detrimentally impact on the subject property itself, nor on the immediate surrounding environment or its people, and that must be upheld. We must have progress, yes, but at what cost? What cost do we place on the loss of the environment? Who becomes accountable for or liable of the after effects of this proposal? The applicant has apparently been able to meet all of the planning department's requirements, and yet I still hold grave fears that if this development proceeds, it will A, decimate the eastern backwater foreshore and the riverbed with the boat ramp and jetties proposed. Please realise that the location of the proposed boat ramp will be redundant when the water level is dropped to its annual reduced levels. The water will be too shallow to launch. It'll cause further strain on the existing dilapidated ramp at Picnic Point. The development will also inundate the small settlement of Kerwin's Bridge, whose population is at present about 130 people, introducing a settlement that will be possibly 1,300 people. It'll create increased traffic, noise and light emissions. It'll reduce the serenity of the area and create loss of bird life, aquatic life and plant life. And it will definitely affect the mental health of the existing residents who will have to live with the consequences, big or small. Perhaps the Shire needed to do its own independent environmental impact study before it could truly and properly consider this proposal. To allow this application to proceed without being fully aware of the impact could really seem negligent. I can only imagine the pressures that have been brought to bear on all of you to make your decision today, especially given the VCAT application. And I thank you all for your time, your efforts, your considerations of all the documents that have led to your decisions, despite that I believe you should have had more reports. I can appreciate that you will never please all the people all the time, and I hope that in this instance you will acknowledge that the majority do not want this application to proceed. Think back to your election days and the majority that voted you. Thank you.
Excuse me, Brenda. There's 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you.
Just 30 seconds.
Think back to your own election days and the majority that voted you to sit in your seats today. Did they really get it wrong? There have been over 1,100 objections lodged. There were a further 300 people that signed a petition against this proposal. And yes, there were 17 people in support of the application. The numbers don't lie. You, our councillors, have a duty to be the voice of the whole community, not just the investors amongst us. Clearly, the community have spoken against this proposal. It is simply in the wrong location. Despite the applicant having ticked all the planning department boxes, does it really make it a right fit? The loss to the environment will significantly outweigh. I urge you all to vote no and decline this planning application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brenda, for taking the time to present to Council today. I'm just going to drop back and see if Richard Opat is with us, but I haven't seen him show up in our list. So, yeah, shall continue on. Heather Cleland, are you with us, Heather?
I am.
Thank you. Would you like to make your presentation? You have 5 minutes, Heather.
I would. Thank you very much. Been very interesting
sitting, listening to all the people of Curwins Bridge. I'm actually from Melbourne, and, you know, to me, this is much more than a local issue. I mean, we only found out about this because somebody from Curwins Bridge approached us during one of the brief times we were let out of jail in Melbourne last year, and we signed a petition, but otherwise we wouldn't have necessarily heard about it. We've been going up to Nagambie and around the Goulburn River, but particularly Nagambie and the backwaters for, you know, around about 20 years or so. And we only go up as day trippers from Melbourne. So the only money I spend is actually at Chateau Tabilk, sorry. But we go there really to canoe on the backwaters and to bird watch. And we put the canoe in at what I now know is called Picnic Point. We go into the east and western backwaters and sort of up and down the river. And I guess coming from Melbourne, we recognise what an absolutely precious resource this is. I mean, we drive for well over an hour to get there, and it's because there's hardly anywhere else in Victoria which we can sort of do that, being full-time employed and not getting a lot of time to go away for weekends and things. So the backwaters to us, just such a precious thing, and away from motorboats and jet skis in particular, I guess. And I guess the other thing is the highlight really is the chance to see brolgas, which, as you know, are a threatened species, and that's mostly due to loss and degradation of their wetland habitats. And that comes from the Victorian Department of Environment, Land and Water Planning. So, you know, if you put aside seeing them at the Western Treatment Plant, which, as we all know, is for sewerage, I think you'd have to say that the eastern backwater, even with its poor water quality, is probably better than that. In fact, it may be worse water quality-wise. But anyway, so the proposal, obviously, as you've heard, to develop a tourist park with 119 cabins and 153 powered sites and various other facilities is really, as people have pointed out, predicated on the water frontage to get access to the river, which is obviously not then going to be a backwater, but just a thoroughfare for a lot of motorised boat traffic. And I guess I don't want to sort of waste your time, but this is not just a local issue, as I said. Large freshwater, freely accessible bodies of water suitable for low impact enjoyment of nature, really hard for us to find close to Melbourne. And this development, with all the infrastructure, rubbish, noise and backwash from boats, and if any of you have ever been in a canoe when one of those surf skis or not the fishermen, they're very polite, but you know, it's pretty unpleasant. Just personally speaking, you can get away from all of that and get away from the backwash, as I say, and the noise, and see a lot of really nice turtles and stuff, turtles, and generally just have a really great day. So I guess I'm trying to be the voice of urban Melbourne in all of this and encourage the councillors to go beyond their sort of local pressure groups and concerns, although the pressure group seems to be pretty one-sided, and to see that they really do have a broader responsibility here for preserving what is, to me as an outsider, an amazing piece of environment and land. And I'd also point out that we looked around the area to try.
Helen.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Mm-hmm.
There actually aren't a lot of other places to stick your canoe in quite easily. So please think very carefully about this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Heather, for taking the time to present to Council this afternoon. Alan McLean, are you with us, Alan?
Yes, I'm here, Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Alan. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation, Alan.
Thank you. I favour caravan and cabin parks, having stayed in 5 in the past 6 weeks. They are valuable for many people, but this park, if approved, would be in completely the wrong spot. Now, I address your own Shire of Strathbogie planning scheme. Clause 71.02 requires the achievement of a net community benefit. Your staff's recommendation that you should support the application does not show how the application would achieve a net community benefit. The staff recommendation relies on tourism benefits outweighing all other matters. I see negative impacts contrary to other planning scheme objectives, including loss of productive agricultural land and potential environmental impacts. The staff report gives no specific information for the position of referral authorities to determine how environmental impacts can be addressed by permit conditions. The report refers to recent commercial use of the land. This land was a farm, then a vineyard. Under 2% of the land was used for cellar door, restaurant and car park. To grant the permit is to lose almost 16 hectares of productive agricultural land when your planning objectives are to preserve it. The proposed subdivision does not accord with existing council policy in terms of land size. It's an ad hoc loss of agricultural land, contrary to your clause 14.01-15. There is no independent assessment of the impact of the loss of this productive land as required by the Strathbogie scheme. The proposal includes several elements for which approval has not been sought, including vegetation removal and potentially works within the public park and recreation zone for which no permission has been applied. For example, jetties, foreshore works and other unknown works in the backwater. The application itself is a piecemeal offering contrary to proper planning, particularly where there's no strategic support for the land to be used for a commercial caravan park. The township boundary is some 3 kilometres away, and the proposal will obviously influence and preempt future planning for Ngambie. It would see the extension of reticulated services, creating pressure for housing or other uses that will lead to loss of even more productive farmland between the current town boundary and the proposed park. The proposal is close to the Kerwins Bridge settlement, but offers nothing to positively contribute. Do you actually know how many ratepayers are in the settlement and in the area immediately surrounding on the west side of the river? The planning scheme requires protection of human life to be prioritised in decision making. CFA guidelines in 2012 for caravan parks do not address this broader question and predate the introduction of your clause 13.02-15 into the planning scheme. The application does not show how the risk to human life is minimised, and I submit that to allow the activity of a cabin park is to put life at greater risk. The council's made it clear that the bridge over the river will be closed to vehicle traffic, probably sooner rather than later. One fire escape route will be lost for current residents on the east side and for several hundred more people when the proposed park is occupied. A major fire commencing anywhere on the old highway between the Waring Roadhouse and the hill just north of the Ngambie would obviously deny escape via the Kerwins Bridge Longwood Road, leaving Lobbs Lane as the only escape route. I invite you to reread the findings of the Bushfire Royal Commission relating to permits for residential land use when there is one road escape. Any fire disaster inquiry will quickly track back to today's meeting when the question is asked, who allowed a caravan park in this location? Objectors have been told that bookings will only be taken from people to the south of the location as a form of minimisation of bridge traffic arriving from the north. This is nonsense. Objectors have been told that no permanents would be allowed in the park. You will know that the Residential Tenancies Act does not permit this exclusion. Objectors have been told that prevalent blue-green algae in the waterway will be treated. How? I want to say something about the process here. Major earthworks commenced more than 6 months before the permit application was submitted. Was the drainage of the 2 dams into the waterway done with the approval of Golden Murray Water? The application was submitted 3 weeks prior to Christmas 2020. Why do you imagine this time was chosen? And information was held just prior to Christmas in the major site building's west room because workmen were busy with renovations.
Excuse me, Alan.
Thank you.
30 seconds.
What message did this send to residents and the councillors who attended? No planning scheme can prevent ruthlessness, arrogance and dictatorial behaviour towards local residents, but these attitudes should not pass without remark. This is not the place for a cabin park. I urge you to reject the application. And may I add a concern that no councillor has yet asked a single question of today's presenters. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alan. I acknowledge your remark that we have not yet asked a question of our presenters, and we are quite familiar with this project and all of the objections which have received. We've received many objections since this was announced, and so we've read many letters. We've also received these from our planning department, so we're quite well versed in them. So it's not that we are not interested, that we're not asking questions of our presenters. It's more that we are quite familiar, and this is a final chance for you to make your case to us, for us to hear your objections to us in person, be it virtual. So thank you for noting that point, and I hope that that explanation explains perhaps why you're not seeing questions from councillors today in this setting. And thank you for your time in presenting to us today. Greg Mayer, are you with us? Or
hello.
Hello, Greg.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see you. Thank you. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Right. I have no idea whether I'm on or not. Good afternoon. My name is Greg Maver, M-A-V for Victor.
Excuse me. It's been printed Mayer with a Y in my notes. So apologies for that, Greg.
You're all forgiven. Same guy. I've heard some very eloquent speakers, and I'm glad to hear that. I'm not going to ask you any questions or try and lecture you or anything else. Most of the points put by the other guys who I know are far more eloquent than I. What I'm going to concentrate on today, just briefly, I live on Kerwinsbridge Road, or I don't live there at the moment, but I will. At the end of this month, I finally retire after 52 years in this business. 63 years ago was when I first put eyes on the eastern backwater. As a young scout from Tatura, we came down at what I now know as Picnic Point. It left an impression, and still has, 63 years later. I couldn't believe it. We have our own Everglades here. This is magnificent. We must have been somewhere near the old bridge pylons, looking over from the boat ramp there. And that's the impression it gives. And it really hasn't changed in that time, thank goodness. So that was an indelible impression was left from that time. Fortunately, after half a century of working, I finally got $2 together to buy this place 20 metres from the bridge. And it is still a beautiful area. I don't have to tell you guys that, you're all locals. You know how beautiful that area is. The planner's report, I was absolutely horrified to see. Not that they've done anything wrong, not that they have any choice. This is the same planning exercise, the same bureaucratic process that applies to virtually any planning application anywhere in the state, any site and any type. So one interesting thing was that it ticked all the boxes. I've heard the expression before often, but it literally did. You know, it's on that report you've ticked every box. Well, that's fine. That's required. What's required of the local government and the Planning Act and everything else, and of council planners. The area I'd like to address is that ticking all the boxes in this case is not the aspect that we, the community, see of it. It doesn't tick all the boxes. It just got rid of the bureaucratic aspect. And it probably meets all of those criteria. But I would ask you, I would appeal to you, I would beg of you, please do not approve this. In the least, defer your decision until we can read the reports. You know, as I think Des, also Richard, And a number of people have pointed out, one day up here, assessing the backwater, didn't see a seagull, didn't see a platypus, no sheeite, yeah. Small wonder, half a day. Now that planning authority is about 100 metres, 200 metres from where I am at the moment. I might go and ask them, but I don't think it'll do any good. But we, the public, need to see those reports. You can't release them on the Friday night of a long weekend and expect to be reasonably considered. It's impossible. They weren't able to be copied. They weren't able to be photographed. So I'm appealing to, particularly at the moment, I think, to defer. We are all aware there's a VCAT thing in place. I don't know how your decision today, other than to, I think it's to formulate your stance. Was that the wording used? I don't know. And as I say, you are the last and probably the only chance to provide what should be a normal checks and balance. Now, I don't think we should really complain. This COVID thing, so many things have been snuck, rushed, sleazed through in the name of COVID, health risks and all the rest of it. You are the one chance we get, probably today, to have any real say at all. I have no faith in VCAT. I think that I suppose we shouldn't complain about this checks and balances. We don't even have a parliament anymore. That was ripped off in under the guise.
Excuse me, Greg. 30 seconds remaining.
Okay. I wasn't going to use this, but I think it's pretty apt. A protest some time ago during the Vietnam War is how I would apply the developer's attitude to this and the general attitude to commercialisation of that area. It was something like join the army, travel to fascinating, beautiful and exotic places, meet interesting and unusual people and kill them. And that's what's happened here. Thanks for your time. I'll see you.
Thank you, Greg, for taking the time to present to Council this afternoon. Darren Wu, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but if you're with us.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Darren.
Yep.
Thank you.
Darren Ow.
Ow.
Yep.
We were debating, was it through without the TH or?
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay, Darren, you have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
No worries.
30-second warning.
Try not to take too long over all the bits that everyone's probably already covered. I'll just sort of read out. I think it's crazy to be considered this planning permit to build a large caravan park 5 kilometres out of the township in the Gambia Curwins Bridge. The proposal is planned on farming land and also surrounded by zone farming land on the backwater system of the Golden River, downstream of the Lake Nagambie. There is no access for boats and other watercrafts currently to the river system there for at least 500 metres of this area in the backwater that is full of existing logs and very low in water. The proposal there has boat ramps, jetties. How are they supposed to get vessels into there? The only way they're going to do that is either dredging and some serious log removal. Has there been any applications or permits for this to happen? The destruction of the backwater inlet would be devastating to many native species, as everyone's already covered off. The bank erosion, the river safety downstream of Lake Nagambie would be a major issue. The river system downstream of Lake Nagambie is already at capacity on weekends. Noise impact from all the extra vessels. Has this been looked at? I would also like to focus on the road safety from Curwins Bridge to Nagambie Township. With all the extra traffic, caravans, boats, trucks, trailers, etc., the single lane road from town would be extremely dangerous for kids to ride their bikes, even walking or jogging. There is no street lighting, and all down this road, no footpath, no bike path. Again, this seems crazy to me that you would consider allowing to build a small town / caravan park 5 kilometres out of the existing township on farming land on the backwater of the river system. How is this going to benefit the actual town, especially when the developer has come out to say he will have his own restaurants and cafes on site? Now onto the bridge, quickly onto the bridge. Curwins Bridge has recently been reduced again to 3 tonne due to safety issues on the bridge. This is a single lane bridge that services a huge amount of traffic from the south, the southwest towns of the communities heading towards Nagambie and further north to Melbourne. They will be impacted drastically with this extra proposed caravan park traffic. This would see the bridge closure in the very near future, thus affecting thousands of people who travel across the bridge each week. Also, the late change. Late change on Friday to transfer the meeting. I understand COVID issues and everything like that, from the rowing centre to online as we are now. This has affected a lot of people that were trying to get to the meeting to show support. And many people from Melbourne that didn't realise that there was a transfer of this meeting as well. Can I also suggest, as Greg did, that we defer the decision for a couple of weeks so all the supporters have their say, and all the other questions that have been asked today about bits and pieces of information that haven't come through. Just to close on my 5 minutes, I can only plead with the council to say no to this proposal at this current location, and could only hope that common sense and all the other many reasons that the 1,100 plus objectors are listened to. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Darren, for your submission today. So our next submitters are Bill and Jill Royden, who are unable to join us this afternoon. So they have requested that I read their submission on their behalf. So from Bill and Jill Royden. My husband and I kayak in the wetlands at Curwins Bridge. We love to quietly paddle along, watching for brolgas, endangered, white-breasted seagulls of concern, spoonbills, swans, and many other birds who live in or visit this area. We believe there are platypus vulnerable and broad-shelled turtles also living there. It is a wondrously beautiful area of the region. Our kayaking along the river past the existing Nagambie Caravan Park does not provide such a diversity of birds and animals. We both believe this area should be conserved as per the following two environmental acts and the Nagambie Waterways Land and On-Water Management Plan 2012. 1. The Protection of Biodiversity Act 12.01-16S, dated 31st of the 7th, 2018, VC 148, states we should strategically plan for the protection and conservation of Victoria's important areas of biodiversity, ensure that decision-making takes into account the impacts of land use and development on Victoria's biodiversity, including considerations of cumulative impacts, fragmentation of habitat, the spread of plants, animals, and pathogens into natural ecosystems, avoid impacts of land use and development on important areas of biodiversity. And 2, the River Corridors, Waterways, Lakes and Wetlands Act 12.03-1S, dated 31st of the 7th, 2018, VC 148. Strategies: protect the environmental, cultural and landscape values of all water bodies and wetlands, ensure development responds to and respects the significant environmental, conservation, cultural, aesthetic, open space, recreation and tourism assets of water bodies and wetlands. Ensure development is sensitively designed and sited to maintain and enhance environmental assets, significant views and landscapes along river corridors and waterways and adjacent to lakes and wetlands. And ensure development does not compromise bank stability, increase erosion or impact on a water body or wetland's natural capacity to manage flood flow. Jet skis, motorboats and recreational swimming in this area would necessitate the removal of many submerged trees, which are habitats for a large amount of aquatic life, many of which are also rare or endangered. Surely there are many other riverside or lakeside sites at Nagambie which would be much more appropriate for the development of a caravan park. Regards, Jill and Brian Royden. Thank you, Jill and Brian, for submitting that today. So our final submitter from objectors is David Maddox, who is submitting on behalf of the Curwins Bridge Community Group. David, are you with us?
How's that? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
I can hear you, David.
And I put my
Thank
video on, my camera's on.
Yep. I can hear you and I can see you. Thank you.
I'm not the DM up in the right-hand corner. That's Steve Mason up there, not me. I'm down the
No
bottom,
worries.
I think.
You have,
Okay.
Yep, you have 5 minutes
Now,
and you'll get a
just
30
before you
seconds
start
warning.
my clock,
Yep.
I wish to share a number of items. So will you enable me to do that, please, Councillor Binks?
Ooh, I don't know if that I can I do that, CEO Solomon? Where do I do that? Through
Well, you've got to
actually,
enable me to share.
David, you'll need to share your screen.
Yeah, but I need to be enabled to do that. So
You there,
Chris.
David? Does it say, so sorry, it shouldn't. Everyone should have the opportunity to share their screen. Oh, yes, it's working now.
you can see that, all right?
Yes.
Well, I don't need to start that just yet. So we'll go back to where we were. I just want to get that technicality sorted out. Sorry
Absolutely. Yep, no, that's understandable.
I'll get going. So thank you for the opportunity, firstly, and I'll refer to the Planning Department's report simply as the report. And I was stunned by the recommendation of Shire Planning Department to this proposal. And for the record, as Jackie Anton pointed out, this is Curwins Bridge. It's not Ngambie. And I think that's a ploy to downgrade the fact that the site is, even the distance from the centre of Ngambie has shrunken from 4.7 kilometres to 3 kilometres in the report. Anyway, after close examination, I believe this is a classic case where the end justifies the means. The report reaches a predetermined decision or recommendations to encourage approval of the permit for development. Firstly, the key element that the application relies on is the subdivision within the farming zone. The executive summary states on page 35 that the proposal meets the objectives of the farming zone. I believe this is incorrect, but I'll refer to that a little bit later. Now, if I could just refer now to I'm just going to share, if the system will allow me. So can you see this? This is from the agenda. Right. Can you see this document?
Yeah, yes, we can hear David. You're breaking up a little bit, but
Yeah,
please
but
continue.
could you see the document that I put on screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, I'm just going to have to minimise that. Sorry, it's a little bit messy here. I'm not having much luck with this, I'm afraid. No, I'll have to just refer to the page numbers, so I beg your pardon for that. Anyway, there are a list of objection items, and the top of that list, this is on page 41, the top of that list is traffic which is followed by car parking. Further down the list is the natural environment. The last item on the list is amenity. Now, I was absolutely appalled that that list gives the impression that traffic was the biggest issue for the objectors and amenity was the smallest issue. And I think this is misleading. More important is that the list does not even include the objections about subdivision. And I know submitters that included this apart from myself. From the planning scheme, important clauses have been overlooked, but time will not allow for me to comment on them. On page 44, there's a table which is headed with decision guidelines, officer comments, and complies, ? The guidelines are only a guide as to what the responsible authority should look into, and not the whole field of assessment. To look at these and make small comments is far too simplistic. Worse still is the tick-the-box approach that makes each element comply. The heading complies is misleading. It should be considered or the like, but certainly not suggest compliance. And I've been through the list and they do not all comply, and yet all the boxes have been ticked. Again, I haven't got time to go into this. Within the table also there's indication about reports, some of which were distributed, others came in very late for us to assess. Now back to the subdivision in this farming zone. The subdivision is to create two lots. Lot 1 with 215 cabins and 57 camper sites, but also manages residence. This pseudo village. Lot 2 has an existing dwelling and for the moment for farming use. Now page 286 of the planning scheme. The document states in clause 35.07-3 subdivision, each lot must be at least the area specified for the land in a schedule for the zone.
Excuse me, David, you have 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. Now page 290 has the schedule to the farming zone, and there are columns there for the minimum subdivision area. Applying to Goulburn Valley and Ngambie Lake area, and we find 40 hectares, the minimum area. The permit may be granted under certain conditions, and there are 3 conditions identified. None of those conditions apply. They are not to create a lot for an existing dwelling. They're not subdivision or a re-subdivision, and they've got nothing to do with a public authority. None of those apply. Hence, the minimum lot size is 40 hectares. And in the proposal is wanting to create 2 lots being 16.4 and 24.9. The planning scheme speaks for itself. Failure to follow the farming zone rules will set a shocking precedent for other developments.
Thank you, David. We're going to have to finish there.
Well, I had that technical difficulty for about at least 30 seconds, which I don't believe was my problem.
Well, I'm going off our
I think that's a technical difficulty. I should have been able to share those documents.
Excuse me, David. David, I didn't start the clock until well after you had put your documents up.
But when I tried to switch to an alternative document, your system would not enable me to do that. So I want just 15 seconds to finish.
Okay, please go
ahead. If you wouldn't mind. Thank you. So the application is wrong from an environment point of view, and that's been explained by many. It's also wrong from an amenity aspect for the residents of Kerwins Bridge. It is very wrong that tourism and profit for the developer should take precedence over the quality of life for the residents of Kerwins Bridge. Please, councillors, do the right thing, disallow this application. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for your presentation. Now, I'm just going to see if Richard Opat has managed to join us. He was unavailable to join earlier. Are you with us, Richard?
Councillor Binks, it's Emma Kubel here. I've actually got Richard on the phone at the moment. Richard only has phone access to the internet, and therefore is having trouble logging through to Teams. I'm quite happy to, I've got him on FaceTime, but that obviously isn't going to be fantastic. I could allow him to speak over the microphone if that suits.
Yes, that would be fabulous. Thank you for finding a solution, Officer Kubel. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Richard, I now have you on speaker to the meeting, and Councillor Binks has just allowed you opportunity to speak to the application. Can you hear that, Councillor Binks?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic.
I'm terribly sorry about me trying to get connected. I've been trying for about half an hour. Did the email this morning either. I'd like to say that the development, the earmark, which is the caravan park or whatever they want to call it, it's actually right on the edge of the most pristine ecosystems in the Ngambie area. And I've been here about 7 years, and I'm seeing that the Olgas has come back. The the younger growing there. I had swans come in and they're giving birth at unusual times of the year. We had platypuses in there, and it's such a eco area. I will say, with the shallowness there and all the logs and all the waterways, you wouldn't want people in there swimming around. You don't want to remove any of the logs there because they're the homes of fish giving birth, and it's such a beautiful picture area that all of us in here, Currents Bridge, love and respect. And I think the project they're putting in there, it's really like looking at a block of milk chocolate, the boxes put together with no creativity and no love for the area. It's just a money grab, I feel, and it's completely inappropriate for one of the most pristine area giveaways in the area. Leave this area alone, build it somewhere else, let them come and visit this area and see how beautiful it is. And I'm not too sure how to put it, but basically, I think it'll destroy the area. We do realise with the land behind us at some stage over our lifetime, it will be developed for housing, etc. But nothing that's just so compact in such a small area. I think it's completely inappropriate and will damage the ecosystem that's here at Ngambie, where at Tillman's Bridge we're very, very proud of. Councillor, I'm not too sure how long I will get to speak, but
thank you.
I think it's I'm actually gobsmacked that it could be even considered something to sit there like that. I mean, being in development all my life with the Friedman Group and Madison Homes, etc., and I've never seen anything like this. Right next to the most beautiful area. Everyone of every financial walk of life is allowed to be able to come and see everything. And I'm not against caravan parks because, you know, everyone's allowed to go away on holidays and be eligible to stay near a place. But don't live in an ecosystem. Get out of it, leave it alone, and let it expand. And the birds and the algas and everything that I've seen develop here over the years, and I can't believe you put that in there. It'll be devastation. It's in that lagoon will just disappear and go somewhere else, and it's not right. I'm not too sure. I like to see the screen now. Hello, everyone. And I do apologise for not getting on, but I'm so passionate about the Ngambie. I've been coming up here since I was 15 with a friend of mine, Vince Kyoto, and I'm just so in love with the area. And the people that live around me, everyone is so passionate about this area, and everybody watches everybody, looks after everybody here. So why can't we look after the nature and everything that we love that's right on our doorstep? It's like living in an aviary, you know? You don't see people with birds and cages around here. They don't need to. They come and visit us. And
Yeah. Brilliant.
Wait for his dingies. Hi, Cookie. So,
Thank
you know, I don't know what to say, but it's completely inappropriate.
Thank you, Richard.
Just about time. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for persisting and finding a way to present to us today. And we're glad you were able to make it. And yeah, thank you for your persistence in that. It's evident your passion. Okay, so that concludes our hearing from our objectors. I would now like to ask Jane Macy if you are available. Our next submitter is Jane Macy from Spire, acting on behalf of the applicant. Good afternoon, Ms. Macy. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation and you will get a 30-second warning.
Thank you very much, Acting Councillor Mayor. I'm wondering if you can see my screen.
Yes, I can.
Yep, terrific. So thank you for the opportunity to present today, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to listen to the objectors present as well. First of all, I would like to just pass on an apology from Andrew Facey. He has just texted me to say that he was listening to all the proceedings thus far, but has been unable to remain online and had to join another meeting. But he did want you to know that he was participating in the meeting. Just trying.
Thank you for that confirmation. I did see his name pop up during.
Oops, trying to go to slide. Yes, so Just by way of summary, Nagambie Waters, the proposed development offers high quality and much needed holiday accommodation to support Nagambie's growing tourism and recreational sectors. It's not a residential development, it's not a permanent accommodation, it is short-term holiday accommodation proposed in response to evidence that the proponents have gathered in terms of the growing need for such accommodation. There will be 24/7 on-site management. Somebody will be residing on-site and available at all times to manage the people staying at the property and manage the activities carrying on. The design has proposed a responsive outcome to the waters, to the site's frontage along the water. It is a very pristine environment. We have heard that from lots of people today, and the proponent has worked very closely with the various authorities that control that waterfront. And there's a number of conditions proposed for this development to provide some control over that. There will be cycling and walking links to Nagambie Town Centre to provide that interconnectivity between the two. As you're aware, it's a fully serviced development, including reticulated water and sewer that will be brought to the site. And it will give the area renewed purpose and continue on that previous commercial use that has been developed on the site. There's an image of how the proposal fits into the whole of the site, showing that two-lot subdivision and the boundaries there. And that's just another image of the new reception centre and cafe overlooking one of the recreation areas proposed. So as you will have read in the report, it is a permissible use under the farming zone. The planning permit seeks permission for the use and development of land for the caravan and camping ground, which is a permit required use. The caravan park will operate under the Residential Tenancies Act, Caravan Parks and Movable Dwellings Regulation, and will be controlled through a licensing arrangement through council. It achieves a number of objectives of the Strathbogie Planning Scheme for tourism and economic development, environmentally responsive design. There's provisions in there for off-site and on-site amenity. Bushfire has been, consent has been provided by the CFA, and we've worked closely with Goulburn Murray Water, the CMA and DELP in terms of catchment management. The proponents worked really closely with council and the authority prior to lodging the application and during the assessment. There's been quite a few representations at consultation and mediation centres sessions which have been organised by the council. The authorities have visited the site on a number of occasions. They've reviewed iterations of the plan and provided various inputs, and then provided conditional consent via the draft planning permit conditions. We have also worked closely with Council's Asset Department, who's also provided conditional consent. This is a real opportunity to both enable the conditions of that site to be protected and enhanced moving forward. There's a number of uses that are allowed under the farming zone that can happen as of right, but this opportunity provides council and the authorities with the ability to have some input and to control over how, particularly in that foreshore area, is managed moving forward. So the proponent is both excited and pleased to be able to offer this proposal to the Strathbogie Council.
Excuse me, Jane, 30 seconds remaining.
Yes. Yep, I've just got this slide. The site reflects much of what Nagambie is known for, including the location on the beautiful backwaters there. There's a need for more accommodation and short-term holiday opportunities there, and this proposal represents the opportunity to combine both these. A high-quality tourism holiday accommodation with controlled access to the backwaters for passive recreational activities, including canoeing and fishing, as well as just being able to sit and observe and learn about the riparian environs of the backwater. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present today.
Thank you, Jane, for your presentation. I have a question from Councillor Dickinson. Would you like to ask your question? Jane, if I could just ask you to stop sharing your screen.
Yeah, I'm doing that now.
Thank you. Thanks.
Has that stopped sharing?
Yes, that has. Thank
Yes.
you. Councillor Dickinson, over to you.
Thank you. Jane, you mentioned a cycling and walking track. Could you tell us exactly where it would be located and whether it's available to everyone, or would it be just available to the occupants of the caravan park?
No, thank you, Councillor Dickinson. So the council has a strategy to provide a publicly accessible cycling and walking link from all directions, as I understand, into Nagambi's town centre. So the exact location hasn't been determined yet because there's obviously a lot of detailed design that we would need to go through. But this linkage would be provided as part of the development approval.
And would it be available to the general public?
My understanding is that the network would be a publicly available network.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions from councillors of Jane? I will take that as a no. So thank you, Jane, for taking the time to present to council today.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So if I can just get you to, stop sharing. Thank you. Okay, councillors, we have now heard from all submitters regarding the application for 82 Curwins Bridge Road, Nagambie, or Curwins Bridge. Could I please have a motion, and could you state your motion, please? Councillor Murray.
Hello, Councillor Binks, Acting Mayor. I would like to move an alternate motion to the one that's listed in the meeting agenda.
Do you have the motion list? Would you like to read out the motion, Councillor Murray?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. I'll move it and read it now. That council, having caused notice of planning application number P2020-124 to be given under section 52 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, and having considered all the matters required under section 60 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, resolved that would have decided to refuse the application of land on land known and described as 82 Curwins Bridge Road, Nagambie, for the use and development of land for a camping and caravan park. 2, in brackets 2, lot subdivision, creation of easements, development of land for a boat ramp, and 4, jetties on the following grounds. There are 4 grounds that I'll list. 1, the permit application has failed to adequately address the potential environmental impacts of the proposed development, and clause 12.01-1S of the Strathbogie planning scheme. 2, the permit application has failed to adequately address how the proposed development of the caravan and camping park satisfies with clause 12.03-1S and will not have unacceptable impacts on the environment, including on the Sloane froglet. 3, the permit application fails to adequately address the context of the area and clause 18.02-1S and provide adequate provision for transport connectivity for pedestrians or cyclists to Nagambie and features of interest in the area. And 4, the permit application has failed to adequately address the lack of connectivity and benefit of the proposed development to the Nagambie community. And finally, that we advise the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal and relevant parties of our position on planning permit application P2020-124.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Do I have a seconder for the alternate motion which has just been put to us by Councillor Murray? Councillor Hayes-Burke, you would like to second it? So is there any opposition? No. So does the mover, that's yourself, Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the motion you have just put to council today?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I would like to say that I am persuaded by many of the arguments that have been put by the objectors today, and who have detailed some of our concerns, I believe, with this application. My major concerns and my reason for moving this motion are that the application fails to really satisfy me on 3 grounds. One, that I believe it has a detrimental impact on the natural environment, and secondly, that it really does not consider the social and economic and physical connectivity of this development to the Nagambie community. And thirdly, that I am afraid that this development will be an ongoing burden on the surrounding local infrastructure in the area. So if I could just say a couple of things in addition about those. I am very concerned that this eastern backwater is quite and its foreshore is a fragile environment, and that these 4 jetties, boat ramp, and the runoff and stormwater drainage from this development will have a serious impact on that environment. The fragility of that environment we've experienced in our trip there, boating around that backwater, and the environmental reports clearly identify the possible presence of threatened and endangered species in that area, and I'm not convinced that the development will preserve those species. I wanted to say something else about the burden too of this development on the surrounding infrastructure. I'm persuaded that there are infrastructures and facilities in the local area, such as local roads, bridges, and the boat ramp, that will be quite severely affected by this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Haysbrook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I also have similar concerns raised by Councillor Murray. While yes, and my intention is also to take into consideration the views of the many objectors that presented today. So thank you all for presenting. You do shape the future of our Shire, so whether you're a submitter in favour or against. This development, while it is only 4.7 kilometres from town, all of the surrounding land is agriculturally zoned. And yes, the purpose of the farming zone is to encourage the retention of agricultural land. And while a caravan park might be a permitted use, it is definitely not encouraged. The land has been commercial before, as has been noted, but only a very, very small percent of the site, as opposed to what is being proposed, is a fully developed site. I'm also concerned that it's contrary to the growth management strategy of Nagambie, as it creates a satellite town or village. The growth management strategy of Nagambie doesn't even take into account this area. And that really concerns me. And I think that if we're going to allow these types of developments, then we need a strategy to guide these types of developments, rather than creating these sort of satellite towns, if you may. I also am concerned about the fragile and important ecological environment. I mean, I couldn't support another boat ramp being established, which would be a further detriment to the current vegetation, and make another inlet into the waterway where there's a boat ramp just up the road, and perhaps upgrading that boat ramp would actually bring more benefit to the community, rather than putting more pressure on the fragile banks of the waterway. I also am concerned that we haven't received a report back from the Department of Land, Water and Environment in relation to the flora and fauna assessment, and we are also waiting on the surveys of 3 species that could be present on the site. So I don't feel like we have a full amount of information to be able to come to a decision. So therefore, I don't feel I can support the application. Thank you, Acting Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Would any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Dickinson?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Let me say from the outset that I am in favour of responsible development, but I don't believe that this proposal fits that criteria. There are too many unanswered questions and therefore there are too many risks. To the natural environment will be disturbed, including flora and fauna. Species such as platypus and brolga are threatened, as well as many others. The roadways are narrow and there are 3 sharp bends. And the traffic will obviously have a huge increase. There's been questionable provision for cycling and or pedestrians for the journey into Ngambie, and there's no public transport. Additional traffic on the heritage protected bridge will hasten its already deteriorated state. It concerns me that we still don't have a DWELP report, and I feel that I don't really have all the information. And for those reasons, I'm not in favour of this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Horrigan, would you like to speak?
I will. I'll just make it short and sweet because I know this application is going to VCAT, and so I think it's better if I keep it that way. So I agree with the alternate motion for the reasons that Councillor Murray already gave, and I wanted to say thank you to everyone that logged in today to speak to us in the 5 minutes and go through your thoughts and feelings. It was much appreciated, and it does show you that we're all impartial right up to that last minute. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horrigan. And finally, I would just like to add that I think the alternate motion as put forward by Councillor Murray, considering where we are with this application and the application that is before us today that we are voting on is how I am comfortable to vote on this matter, given the number of unknowns as has been raised along the way. I, like Councillor Dickinson, am not opposed to development. I just think we need to be really proactive on ensuring that development is appropriate for the site, both for our community of people, but also our environment. We are very aware that in our Shire we have some incredible natural environment. The Eastern Backwater is definitely one of those. And so having appropriate development is, I think, a really important position of this council. And I know that we need to do a lot of work in our planning scheme, and it is something that we have spoken about as a council, and it is where once we have our council plan and budget and other moments, sort of other items, big items that we've got to get through, we'll be working through looking at how we can move forward and develop in a way that is beneficial to our community, to our investors, and to, most importantly, our natural environment. So thank you. Okay, does the mover, Councillor Murray, wish to exercise their right of reply?
Simply, acting Mayor, I would like to reiterate my thanks to the other people who have spoken, to all our ratepayers who sort of made the effort to join us today and to put forward their view. Our lack of questions were not really, reflective of a lack of interest in what was being said. But we're all very passionate, people in the Shire, passionate citizens, and I thank you for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillors, I will now put the motion to a vote. Can I please see a show of hands for all those in favour? Declare it carried. Thank you. Sorry, finding my place in my minutes here, in my agenda, I should say. Councillors, given that we have considered the submissions and made a resolution on item 9.2, we will now adjourn this council meeting and reconvene at the usual time of 6 p.m. Under Governance Sub-Rule 25.1, I require a motion to defer the meeting until 6 p.m, which will continue to be held virtually due to COVID-19 restrictions. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Hayes-Burke.
Yes, I'm happy to move a motion to adjourn the meeting until 6 p.m. Thank you, Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Hayes-Burke. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Dickinson. Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Is there any opposition? No. I will now put the motion to a vote. All those for?
Can I just have a point of order before
Sure.
you vote? There is a question from somebody there, David, a guest. Should we ask that first?
CEO Solomon, I think we can go on with this, and then I will go to them after we've voted on the matter of deferring, if that's okay, Councillor Murray. But thank you for bringing that to my attention. We're voting on a motion to defer this meeting, to adjourn it until 6 p.m, when we will resume virtually due to COVID restrictions. All those in favour? Declare it carried. Okay. So thank you to everyone who has participated and viewed the meeting this afternoon, and I will welcome you back. I look forward to welcoming you back to the meeting at 6 p.m. Before we go, David, would you like to ask a question? Sorry, I cannot see your last name. Just said David Guest. But you have your hand up.
It's David Maddox.
Hello, David Maddox.
I just wanted to say, just on behalf of the Kerwins Bridge Community Group, the relief that all the members of that group will now have as a result of your wonderful decision. Thank you, councillors, very much.
Thank you, David, for your comment. So we are now adjourning the meeting until 6 p.m, and we'll be live online streaming from 6 p.m. this evening, and I look forward to welcoming you back then. Thank you, and see you then.